Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tom Allman, and I'll be your guide today here at Shawano's Heritage Park at our Zachow Railroad Depot Museum. Come on in. Once you just passed through these doors, you just just went from 2020, today's date, to 1906. As I close the door, now you're inside a actual working depot, a railroad depot, the way it would have been in 1906. If we look around here, this is the Zachow depot. This would be the seating that they would have had exactly the way it was. And the potbelly stove would have been our heat source. Air conditioning in the summertime would be open up the windows that we have over here. So, even though this depot was built in 2013, the person that put this and donated it to us by the name of Dean Proper actually grew up in the little town of Zachow, was a young boy there in the 1940s and loved to play at the depot. And just like young boys, 10, 12 years old, they love to be around the trains, love to be around the depot. The depot was torn down in the 1970s, so his favorite place where he liked to go and be was gone. So he wanted to give something like this back. So how could he do it? He went to the Chicago and Northwestern headquarters in downtown Chicago, talked to people there, and got the original plans for a number 3 depot and rebuilt this in 2013 exactly the way they would have built the depot in 1906. A 2x4 in this building is a 2" by 4" 2x4. All the windows that we have here are all cantilevered and have the chains for the windows with weights behind here. So as you open them, they'll open easy because they're all just the way they would have built them in 1906. Single pane glass that are in here, not the double pane that we have today. Everything is exactly the way it was in 1906. So today it's pretty comfortable in here. We don't have to have a fire. But the Chicago Northwestern with their depots had different sized potbelly stoves. So this potbelly stove is the exact size that you would have in a room like this in 1906. Why the high ceilings? The high ceilings were very, very important. When they fired up with coal, the potbelly stove automatically air rises because of the heat, correct? Well, it has to go this high, and what they're trying to do is get what we call the roll. And you want the air to roll in the inside of the room, push the cold air towards the potbelly stove, it rises again. So once you have the stove going, within an hour, every square inch of this room is the same temperature. If it was at 72, it's 72. If you have the low ceilings like we have in our homes today, you don't get the roll, you don't get the uniformity of the temperature. So that's what's so important about that. So come on in, let's show you some things of what a depot manager or agent would be like working in a 1906 depot. First of all, in 1906, even though electricity had been invented and the telephone had been invented, we didn't have those in Zachow, Wisconsin. Why? Because the lines didn't get out that far yet. Sure, they had electric lights and they had telephones in Green Bay, but in the little town of Zachow, and probably even in Shawano, Wisconsin, there were no electricity yet, and of course there was no telephones. So, because this was out in the middle of nowhere, we had to have some way to make the telegraph work because that was the only way that we could communicate. And of course the telegraph, you use Morse code to work the telegraph. You need electricity. So, we need a 1906 6-volt battery, which is right down there. Can you see that glass down here? That is the battery that operated the telegraph. And every 2 weeks, a gentleman from Green Bay would come out on the train with fresh battery acid, and he would come in and have to exchange and put new acid in that battery so we could keep working and using our telegraph that we have here. Now, in I would say probably the 19-teens, we finally got what we call a line phone. And in here were 2 batteries that they use then. It's newer, smaller batteries. Now this I couldn't call to any place in the United States. I couldn't even call locally. The only thing that a line phone did is they used the telegraph lines, and I could call up or down the line. So I could call to Green Bay, or I could call to Eland, or Shawano or any place in between. And we all had a special ring. In this case, we had a long and a short. And then that way they knew that it was Zachow, and that's the way it was. Now, when the trains went by, because Zachow was so small, you know, this is basically for freight and for hauling lumber and for picking up cattle, sometimes we had to get word to the train, a message that maybe I would get on a telegraph after the train left Green Bay, but didn't get to Zachow yet. And maybe in Green Bay they got word that freight needed to be picked up in Shawano. So I had to get word to the train to let them know that they had to pick up freight in Shawano because we were ahead of them. That's where we use this. Whenever I do the tours for the kids from 4th grade, I like to tell them that this is a 1906 cell phone. And they get a kick out of it because I said, you know, back in 1906, you had to have a wire connected to get your information to that person. You can't have a wire on a train, so what are we going to do? And it makes them think. So that's why I call this the 1906 cell phone. And what I do is a way to get a message to the train without a wire, okay? So you make a message on a piece of paper, you put it in here, I go out and stand by the side of the tracks and I hold this up because not every train stops here. As the train goes by, the conductor grabs this, grabs the note, so now he knows what to do, and then he takes this, opens the window, and throws it out on the side of the tracks. And if I'm the agent, guess what? I walk down the tracks and I have to pick this up and bring it back, okay? So, too many agents had to walk too far, so they came up with the new improved 1908 version, and this was just string attached to it. Put the note on the string, you hold it out the same way, the conductor grabs the string, but I still have the wand, and I don't have to walk down the tracks. And that's how they got messages to a moving train from the depot. Now, one thing that we had back in 1906 is people that like to bum free rides on the train, hence the word bum, okay? Now, a bum is not a hobo, is not a bad person. It's just people that were looking for a ride, but they always liked to work. So a hobo would jump the tracks, bum a ride, go to another town, and look for a place to work. And he'd work for a day or two, make some money, and then he could keep on going. So what happened back in then is that you had people called bulls. A bull was a very bad person, a very muscular person that would be on the train, and his job was to make sure that nobody got a free ride on the train. He usually had a billy club with him, so he wasn't a very kind guy. If he would find you riding on the train, you might get hit over the head with a billy club and tossed off the train, which could result in some bad things happening, right? So every hobo had a piece of chalk in his pocket. And when he came out and went to a place, he would mark the side of the rails as to what was going on. So if they had a bad bull, if we can catch this here, here are the hobo marks, see? If you have a little cross here, it means it's a good place for a handout. If you see a cross, like a Christian cross for a church, it means the religious people be there, be sanctimonious, don't swear, okay? If you see a knife, it means dishonest man, don't ask for work here. If you look like a tic-tac-toe, a police officer lives here. And then you can see down the line, good jungle, make yourself at home, you can sleep in the farmer's barn. This means poor water, and then this means bad bull, stay out of the yards. That means you're going to get hurt. And so these are just the different hobo marks that they would put out on the side of the rails, so future hobos, when they came by, knew where to go. So all of this kind of gives you an idea of all what was going on here. Let's go to the freight room. Let's kind of give you the grand finale of our depot. And thanks to Dean Proper, because this was in Zachow, Wisconsin, 8 years in the making, he had a complete diorama of the small town of Zachow as it was right after World War II in the late 1940s. Everything built to scale. It's really beautiful. I don't want to tell you all the details of this. There's so much to talk about. So that's why I want you to come in. As soon as we can open back up after COVID, I hope you all can like what you see here on the tape and come on in and join us and see the rest of our wonderful history here at Heritage Park in Shawano, Wisconsin. Thank you.